because comedy writing tends to attract a pretty diverse group of people, I found myself as a young man in a lot of different rooms that I would have never normally been in. And frankly, those people took me under their wing. They really were like, oh, we think this kid is funny. And frankly, I got the best advice of my career from Paul Aaron, who essentially said, look, these guys are funny and they're not going to be impressed by you. So for your first 14 weeks in the room, I want you to shut up.
All right, you're listening to Hawke Talk. I'm here today with Orlando Jones. How are you, man?
I'm excellent, man. How you doing, Eric?
Good. Good to have you. So I got to imagine the day you're born, you come out, start doing some stand-up, cracking jokes in the delivery room, and it's just from there, that was it. Actor, comedian, entrepreneur. That's just how
Of course.
Yeah, we're all born this way. But yeah, let's take it back. Where are you from originally?
I was born in Mobile, Alabama.
There you go. And like, were you born to a family in the arts, or like, what was that sort of upbringing like?
No, my father was a professional baseball player.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and my mother actually started off as a librarian, and then she became promotion manager of some of the largest TV stations in the country.
Okay.
So she did that for years, as it were.
So you had a window into it. So as you were a kid growing up, like, tell me a little bit about childhood. Like, what were you into? Like, we're talking the young child at the 3-4 years old.
Oh, wow. The little guy running around, I'm not sure if what I was into at that point, it was always the regular boy toys, airplanes. I was very fascinated with airplanes because my dad traveled a lot. So when you're at airports and hotels and you're seeing them take off and land, I was like, man, I want to do that. And they were like, you need to join the military. And I was like, man, I'm not doing that.
Was that actually something your parents had talked to you about, is joining the military?
Well, in order to fly planes, you're going to do that through the Air Force. So they were like, listen, that's something which you really want to do. And it's truly a desire. Here's the path, right? They were very focused on what the path was, but not focused on pushing me into it, as it were. So originally a pilot was the first thing I wanted to be.
There you go. And and what do you remember what turned you off from the military side?
I think as I got to understand what those words meant more, there is obviously a huge service part of it, but there's also a tremendous sacrifice part of it. And I wasn't the kid that was like trying to figure out how my parents were going to pay for college. So all of you get this for free, that was not a selling point to me at all.
Got it.
So, and as I thought about just sort of the processes that one goes through, and then what would my life ultimately be like as a pilot, right? You spend similar, I guess, in some ways to a coach, and you spend so much time away from home.
Yeah.
Right. But I was at the time, I was like, I don't know if I want to do, 8-10 years in the military just to fly planes. I was like,
that's fair.
Yeah. So that was the logistics made me back up.
And how old were you when you realized that? Like, what kind of age were you when you were like, want to be a pilot, but maybe that's not the right path?
I think I was still on the train at around 10 or 11. Okay. And my parents were really big on when I got in trouble, my job was to read the dictionary or to read the encyclopedia. That was my punishment. So I would read the stuff that I was interested in. So as I got to understand more about, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's really the Army, and the rest of these branches are really affiliated to the Army, but the control center is here. So I was like, I'm good.
Fair. So that's actually, I love that. I'm curious, are you now a voracious reader? Did it turn you more onto reading or less, being forced to read?
Probably more. More. Yeah. I mean, it certainly gave me a love of words.
Yeah.
And the use of words and all those sorts of things. So it probably, I think, edged me into being a writer more than I would have expected. And ultimately, I came to Hollywood first as a writer. I started an advertising agency when I was 18. And that went well and was successful. And then I came out here and started writing on situation comedies. So I think the reading paid off.
Yeah, it seems like it did. And so Again, 10, 11, you kind of start to move on from the pilot thing. Were you into, again, English or writing, or like what were your other interests as that at that age?
Primarily, I think sports, right? I love
Okay.
sports and I love music. Those were the two things that sort of, hit my fancy. My grandmother was a piano player, pianist,
Uh-huh.
and she was self-taught, played in the church and all that kind of stuff. And I apparently picked up her ear because I would just go to her piano and pick out the notes. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
here's the song, find the note. It's this, this, this. And
Yeah.
so I think they noticed I had an aptitude for it at that time, and I started, music lessons and piano lessons and all that. But it was predominantly sports, and music was the my passions as a kid in terms of how
Uh-huh.
I spent a great deal of my time.
And what on the sports side, was it baseball? Like your dad, or what was it?
No, I wanted no parts of baseball because it was
Yeah.
my dad's thing.
Get it.
And when you're young and your father's been successful in something, everybody who I met was like, "What sport do you play? Boy, your
Yeah.
daddy was a hell of a player." It's that. So I really wanted no part of what he played. So it was really basketball was my first
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
Track I liked a little bit. Football, obviously, I enjoyed, but basketball was my first love.
Nice. Got it. And so did you, again, once you left that pilot idea of being a pilot, were there other things that came into play of like, this is what I want to be when I grow up?
There are a
That
lot of
teenage years.
people who were throwing the idea of being an attorney at me, right?
Interesting.
Particularly in high school, because as I got on the debate team, one of our debate mentors was an attorney, and so he had an interesting background. He'd gone to Purdue, and he was a chemistry major, and then he became an attorney. So his basis was to do corporate law, and when there's a spill and Exxon does it, he was like, "That's a check. That's a that's a nice fat one from this company who has no problem." So he was very much sort of laying out what he thought the ins and outs of corporate law were. But again, I followed in his footsteps in that I was a chemistry major,
Uh-huh.
but I was not interested in, in the legal profession.
What's really funny is one of my marketing teachers in college was a chemistry major. And I
Oh
always thought that
wow,
was awesome, that like what a base that gave someone, that it had nothing to do with their career, similar to you or
100%,
him, but it's there's just something you can pull from that in terms of research and the ability to test and
one hundred
critical
percent.
thinking. Yeah.
And word problems really, because ultimately chemistry is word problems. If you know what the formula is and you understand the word problem, then in my life that really played a big role.
And so fast forward, you said you went to school for chemistry, but you started an agency at 18. So were you running an agency out of college?
I was. I dropped out of college to do my agency.
Yeah. And this was what year was this? Give me.
So this would have been I went off into college in 1986, 85, 86. And by the time it was 1988, 89, I was like, because I went to college at Charleston first. I got a scholarship to go there.
To,
Um,
is that USC?
no, I went to college at Charleston in Charleston, South Carolina.
Right. That's the University of South Carolina,
Oh, is
right?
it? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
USC's in Columbia, so
Oh,
about
got it.
120 miles away, and
Got it.
straight shot
Oh,
down.
College of Charleston. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Of course, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's where my boy Hootie went there.
Yeah. There you go.
So he was up there playing sorority parties with the Blowfish, uh,
Yeah.
but he's from Charleston,
Got it.
so that's how I knew him. So we were obviously back and forth,
Yeah. That's
always,
awesome.
always hanging out and whatnot. But yeah, so obviously in South Carolina, it's a 3-hour drive from one end of the state to the other. So you're really everywhere. You at
Yeah.
Furman, you're at Clemson, you're at Davidson. My
Yeah.
father had coached at Furman, so
Oh,
a
cool.
lot of time around those schools. And College of Charleston's an oddity because Charleston celebrated its bicentennial before the United States did. It's a very old
Oh,
school in that sense. So I got really caught up in all of that, and the Avery Institute is there, and learning about how things actually transpired and whatnot. And that
yeah.
led me to starting an advertising agency. And that kind of took off. The attorney I was telling you about incorporated me for free
Uh-huh.
and kind of
Yeah.
pushed me out and
Yeah.
said, "You're going to start this agency. You'll be fine, kid."
Yeah.
Uh,
It's amazing that push. I mean, I have a college professor that gave me a little bit of that push of like, you're going to do something big. And I was like, not the best student. I wasn't like an awful student, but I was like,
mhm.
my GPA was like a 3.4. It was just like I
Yeah.
wasn't horrible, but I wasn't like straight A's either. I wasn't
Right, right.
outstanding, and so it wasn't. So and he's just like, and he pointed at me like in the middle of my senior year and was like, "You're going to build something big," and I'm like, "I don't know what me, okay."
Right.
And like, that's the point.
Exactly.
He's like, "Okay, um, that's awesome." And
And
so
I think we forget as adults how important it is when someone sees you and sees something in you, how often they lay that path for you, and you start to strive for things that you might not have previously thought you were
exactly,
capable of. So yeah,
yeah,
for me the same. Adam Fisher was my guy.
yeah, awesome. Marty Fox, my guy. And so you how quickly did you drop out of school to do the advertising thing? Was you trying to juggle both and then it just you got a bunch of clients and off
Yeah,
to it?
I was juggling both for about a year.
Yeah.
And doing fairly well at that. Certainly with the emphasis on the work and not on the school, because
Yeah.
suddenly I was making more than my parents were and my teachers. So I was like, and sort of to lean that way. And I
And how did
met,
that work? Like, what kind of work were you doing? How did you get those customers? Like, how did that all happen? How did it come to fruition?
dude. It was door to door.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We started the agency. And I had worked with a couple of other agencies and production companies, and they kind of drug me into it. A company called Kingfisher Production, a gentleman named Brian Elmson, out of North Carolina. They got a contract with the state of South Carolina, and they were targeting at the time young kids, African American, Latino kids under the age of 17, as they were trying to educate them about the ills of this new disease called AIDS and what
Yeah.
to do to avoid it. And so they brought in a consultant.
Yeah.
I was the 16-year-old kid to figure, and I
Got it.
pitched them a bunch of ideas. And they were like, "Oh, this is great." And they wrote it all down. And I was sitting in their office and I was looking at the board and I saw, this adds 3.6 million, this adds 4 million, this adds 7 million. And they were next to all of the ideas I had pitched them. So I
Yeah.
called my Adam Fisher guy and I said, "Hey, man, I pitched these guys these ideas. They paid me like 6 grand. I thought I was rich.
Yeah.
And there's like $14 million worth of business on a board.
Yeah.
I got 6 grand.
Yeah.
Those are my ideas." And he
Yeah.
was like, "You should probably use those as the basis of your resume and work and go out and pitch people." And I started to pitch the state and Mazda and Food Lion.
I
And
was gonna. How did you get into all that? Like, how did you even get into that first pitch? Like, how did they find you as a 16-year-old?
honestly, I had a lot of help. Kingfisher was not trying to block me. They were actually trying to
Oh,
help.
sorry. I mean, even how did Kingfisher find you?
Oh, sorry. Kingfisher found me because they were producing the ads, and they knew someone who knew my family.
Got it.
I answered the phone at the Jewish Community Center,
Yeah.
and I had my jokes and what have you if you were there. And the rabbi at the Jewish Community Center was, "This kid is clever and he's funny. You guys should meet him." And they met me and they were like, "You should come be in one of our ads." And I was like, "Sure." And so from being on set, hanging out, chatting with them, I
Yeah.
got a consulting job and the rest was history.
Got it. Awesome. And so then they helped you open the door to some other jobs. Was it
Yeah,
similar
then
stuff? Was it
Adam sort of
targeting?
helped me open the door, and a lot of the crew I worked with repeatedly. You're in South Carolina, North Carolina, there aren't that many crews, so it was fairly easy to go pitch somebody and go, "And here's the crew I'm gonna use to shoot it."
Yeah.
So, and I got familiar with the process of how one does that, and suddenly at 18, everybody was saying, "You should go do this, kid," and I did, and I landed about 4 clients, and I was in business.
Awesome. And so you said you did that for how many years did you run that agency?
I'm still doing that.
Oh, you are. Got it.
Yeah,
You're good at
that's
that.
never stopped all through coming to Hollywood and what have you. I've never shut that down.
So as you started to grow that, like, give me the path there. Like, you drop out of school, you're now doing this full time. As you said, you're making more money than your parents and your professors, and your parents did well. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
Uh,
I was doing well. I mean, obviously you make it in lumps, right? So it's a
yeah.
totally different situation. So that went well for me. Super excited about it. Um, Films come into town to shoot in Charleston. Film came into town. Swamp Thing. Uh,
Yeah.
I went and auditioned. I met Meg Lieberman and Lieberman Hirschfeld Casting. So I said, I auditioned for a show called 227.
Yep.
Still in college. Living in Hirschville set that up. They flew me to Los Angeles.
Yep.
I had previously met a producer down in Charleston who I called up and said, "Hey, I'm in LA." And he said, "Hey, come by. I can't believe you're here."
Yeah.
And that introduction and those folks really guided me through. It turns out that guy had a company now known as Three Arts Entertainment.
Mhm.
And I met those folks, and they were like, have you ever written a sitcom? And I was like, no, I haven't. And he's like, my wife is executive producer of a show that called A Different World. It's on after Cosby.
Mhm.
Maybe you'll write a spec and send it over there. So I did. And next thing I know, I had an interview, and then I got hired for a job. And so I dropped out of college, flew to LA, and started writing on A Different World in season 4. I worked on there season 4, season 5. And then through that, I ended up with a deal at HBO Independent Productions, co-wrote the pilot of a show called Martin
Mhm.
with Martin Lawrence, with my buddy John Bowman, God rest his soul.
Mhm.
And that launched me into being a sitcom writer. So wrote, for Fox, a Sinbad show, you name it. And after that, there was a new network launching called FX into 18 million homes out of New York. And I got hired to do that and host. And so I was suddenly making the transition from being a writer producer behind camera to in front of the camera. And I did that and was
Real quick on all this, like, did you ever take acting classes, writing classes? Or was this just like comes from reading the encyclopedia and the dictionary to now like figuring out how to be creative with advertising, which does lend itself to sitcoms, and I get that. Like,
100%.
yeah. So was it just like self
No,
taught?
there were no classes to take. I actually don't even believe anybody could teach you how to write a sitcom or be a quote Hollywood writer. It's a very particular and it's a collaborative process. But if you don't understand how what role the studio and the network plays and how much that process changes once you get out of post,
Yeah.
I don't know who could teach you that, right? So I was very fortunate. I really got taught by a bunch of old school comedy writers
Yeah. And
in real time.
what did they see in you? Was it that you were a young hustler that had this great agency and you had figured it out and they're like, I like this guy, let's teach him?
I think it was a number of things, honestly. I think one of the things was, it's a kind of a closed environment in many ways, and culture plays a big role in these conversations. Again, my time at the Jewish Community Center,
Yeah.
and with Libby Fector, my sort of second mom, meant I spoke Yiddish fluently. I realized,
Yeah.
and I became a vegan, as it were,
Yeah.
starting off eating kosher. Right, I started off eating kosher with Libby, and then I became vegan. Right,
Mhm.
so I understood what the side conversations were.
Yeah.
And so I would comment in the side conversations and they would laugh. How does this kid know what we're
Yeah.
saying? And that, obviously that led me to, you're at the bat mitzvah, you're at the bris, you're at a lot of those events, and because comedy writing tends to attract a pretty diverse group of people, I found myself as a young man in a lot of different rooms that I would have never normally been in. And frankly, those people took me under their wing. They really were like, "Oh, we think this kid is funny." And frankly, I got the best advice of my career from Paul Aaron, who essentially said, "Look, these guys are funny, and they're not going to be impressed by you. So for your first 14 weeks in the room, I want you to shut up.
Mhm.
I don't want you to speak. I want you to listen so that you understand the nomenclature and how it works." And not speaking for 14 weeks was the greatest lesson and gift I was ever given, because I really, after a while, it started to make sense to me.
Yeah.
But and I pitched one joke and didn't listen to him. And I'll never forget, my friend Gary Miller turned to me and he said, "You want to peddle that joke door to door with an effing manual?" And I was like, "Okay." But, you did like, look, you'd have to explain that. They don't have the script in their hands.
Right.
Like, thank kid. But it was really those guys, Linwood Boomer and the like, and who kind of took me under their wing and thought I was worthy and taught it to me.
And did you like when you dropped out, you moved out to LA, like was it like right out like as you said, you wrote the script that the spec script and then got
Or the
the
spec
job.
script.
A lot of people
Mhm.
come out here and spend a decade trying to break in and don't. Was it really just the door open because of the people you met in Charleston and you never had that? Or was it like,
Dude, I met Paul Aaron in Charleston. Paul Aaron introduced me to Erwin Stoff.
yeah,
Erwin Stoff's wife, Deborah All, was the executive producer on A Different World who had just taken over the show.
yeah,
They asked for the spec script. I turned it in. They said, "This sucks, but we can teach it to you, kid."
I love that.
They flew me out here, and I met Susan Fales, who was really the person who hired me, presently working on Sex in the City, and she took a shot on me.
Yeah.
She was like, "You know what? I'm going to take a shot on you," and they did. And she took me around and introduced me. They spent a lot of time really teaching me the ropes. I was really fortunate, man.
And again, got to go back to the like, why do you think they did that?
I think that Susan really took the responsibility of her role differently than other people did. For A Different World, she went to Howard University. She went to Spelman every year, and she spent 2 or 3 months interviewing kids to really understand what that experience was.
Uh-huh.
And I was the only person who was really in that age demo,
Yeah.
right? I was still a 18, 19-year-old kid. And the rest of the staff, they're in their 50s, they're in their 60s, they got kids, and they wanted a young kid in the room that really was the demo. And I think, that was it. They were looking for the kid. They brought me and 4 other kids.
Yeah, I get that on the job. I'm curious more about the above and beyond that, like how they took you
Oh,
around. Like,
honestly, I am not sure. I think a lot of that has to do with just can you deal with the social elements of it? You're in a lot of rooms. There's a lot of lunches, and I think, frankly, the biggest benefit was shutting up
mhm,
because all my counterparts got fired,
got it.
every one of them. And I think it's because, they were trying to get in, they're trying to be funny, they're trying, and that doesn't work. It didn't work.
Yeah,
So literally shutting up is what I think saved me because I think they understood that I was learning
yeah.
and I wasn't trying to press it. And I think that probably benefited me more than anything else, to
No,
be honest.
that's really interesting because I wonder how you balance that. Like, again, you're excited about this new job. You want to provide value. It's hard to sit there silent for 14 weeks, hoping that they still see the value of you being there while you're sitting there and shutting up.
I spent a lot of time talking about that with Paul,
Yeah.
and he kept saying to me, "Shut up." Yes, I know that's what you're thinking, but that's not what they're looking at. They did not hire a 19-year-old because they need you to carry the comedy on the show.
Yeah.
Pitching is a very specific thing. It's not like just saying something that's funny. It's something that's funny that fits the character that also moves the story forward and hopefully illuminates something about the character
Yeah.
that we can't just chiron on the screen. That window is so narrow that learning how to do it and the only way to do that is to listen to people who are great at it do it.
Yeah.
So, and frankly, off of the folks who I worked with who were in my age group who got fired, watching them so eagerly trying all the time and missing so often,
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
That's not serving you because they're rolling their eyes because you're slowing down progress in the room."
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Right?
It's as I told you before we even got started, like the different advice and the different paths and stories I hear on this, like it's amazing how I've done this podcast 150 times and this is something new about like sometimes it's about not proving yourself in the beginning. It's about shutting up and learning and using that
Yeah.
opportunity. And that's great.
And also giving people the opportunity to see and understand that you don't know
Yeah.
and giving them an opportunity to teach you or guide you
Yeah.
rather than pretending you know and then doing too much. And
Yeah.
Hollywood is a place where people often do too much because they are feeling insecure and want to prove themselves. So I was fortunate in that they were like, "Look, just shut up."
Yeah.
And I was okay. And I did that and it worked out for me.
Love it. So you worked on that show on Martin, as you said with HBO, uh, and then you got put in front of the camera for hosting. That's kind of where we left off.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's kind of how that went. I had done a couple years on A Different World, and I had moved on to Martin and what have you. And I was in the season finale of A Different World, the big wedding and whatnot. And, we're going to put you in this show, that kind of stuff in a
Yeah.
small role. I did that, had a great time,
Yeah.
and for me, it was always about being a writer, producer, performer. I'd grown up, being excited by Mel Brooks and Richard Pryor,
Yeah.
and if you want to go back, Shelley Berman, W.C. Fields,
Yeah, so
Steve
really, I've got a
Martin.
quick, fun Mel Brooks story. I walked my cousin, who was a filmmaker for a long time, pivoted, but we walk out of Ivy at the Shore in Santa Monica. Mel Brooks is standing on the sidewalk, and my cousin, like, could barely get the words out. He goes, Mr. Brooks, I love your work." And he just looks at both of us, looks at him and goes, "Well, you have terrible taste," and walks away.
That's him.
Yeah.
Dude. Him, Rob Reiner. There were so many, guys whose work at that period. I mean, obviously, learning Red Fox and learning how much of it in Mom's Mabley that as a foundation of comedy. I was just, I had my dad's old records and stuff, but suddenly I had access to Dick Gregory, right?
Yeah.
And I could be around. So I think it was all of those things, and I was always a student of it. And I believe that studentship kind of really guided me because I was looking at different types of comedy from comedians coming from wildly different backgrounds. I loved Lenny Bruce. I loved his irreverentness and pushing the envelope. And I was like, I want to be those guys.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the mainstream guy so much. I want to push the envelope.
Yeah.
And there I was.
And so you started hosting. Did you really start to go like acting's going to be my thing, or I'm going to do both? Like, how did you think about it once you got in front of the camera?
I'd always wanted to do both. To do the trio, right? Write, act, produce. That always had been my desire. I didn't know if I would get there because the natural aptitude I probably had was more as a performer.
Mhm.
But becoming different characters is a very different thing.
Yeah.
I hadn't had that experience before,
Mhm.
and I tend to look for things that were challenging.
Yeah.
So, coming off of being a writer and then doing a host setup suddenly on FX,
Yeah.
and that show that I did on FX was called Sound Effects, and it was about music, and it was a consumer guide to music.
Mhm.
And my music love had never diminished, so I had all of these. So it was really that background, and then of course suddenly I was on Mad TV,
Yeah.
and they hired me as a writer performer. I was the only cast member that was in the writing room
Oh, interesting.
because I really had more writing experience than the showrunners, right?
Yeah.
But they hired me as an actor.
Yeah.
So here I was now on this sketch comedy show with people who really had an aptitude for the groundlings and all that kind of stuff. I was just sort of quick witted, and I kind of had to, get up to speed very quickly.
Yeah. I was going to ask, how is that transition? Because that's, you're talking about some other legendary comedians and people that, as you said, had experience in groundlings and that side of things, like, and new improv that you were jumping in. Like, you were a great writer, but being on the other side and like having to execute it.
They just threw me in, man.
Yeah.
I had to figure it out.
Love that.
Artie Lang was my roommate in season 2. I love Art. Look, David Herman, super talented people. Look, I got in the water and swam. That's what it was.
Yeah.
I think really my sports background probably. I knew to prep.
Yeah.
I knew to be ready, right? And for impersonations, I always was pretty good at them anyway.
Uh-huh.
So as I got into Mad TV, I realized that was the strong suit. So I would just whomever I was doing, I'd get them down to a T, and I'd try and pick people that people hadn't done before.
Yeah. What was your
Samuel L.
favorite one?
Jackson and that kind of stuff. People you're like, is he doing a Samuel L. Jackson
Yeah.
impression right
Yeah.
now? And then of course there's the easy ones. Cosby. You always do the popular people and what have you, and
Yeah.
and then they want you to create original characters, and there you were. So honestly, dude, I don't. Nobody who my agents and reps didn't really ask me. They just kind of threw me in.
Yeah.
And it was it was the 90s in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So
When you were
you
that,
just
like, in a sink or swim environment, you swam. Like, that's what it sounds like. It's like,
that was really it.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's all. And so did Mad TV really lead to a breakout on the big screen, so to speak, or was it like, how did things progress from there?
It did. Matt TV gave me a really tremendous reel over the course of the 2 years that I was there of me doing a lot of things. And
Yeah.
frankly, that reel was the door opener. Spielberg saw it, and those people saw it, and that's how I found myself over at DreamWorks and all these other places.
Yeah.
Because people would look at my reel and go, "Oh, this kid's talented." And I think the real breakthrough was frankly Larry David.
Okay.
His his directing debut
Yeah.
was a film called Sour Grapes.
Uh-huh.
and I got cast as the homeless guy who runs throughout the movie. And after doing that movie, I didn't have a feature agent.
Yeah.
I had the hosting agent, right?
Yeah.
And the feature department was like, who's this kid?
Yeah.
Came from what, Mad TV? Who's watching Mad TV? Like, nobody cares. And then Barry Levinson and Martin Scorsese, both, I did an audition for both of them, one for Barry Levinson for Liberty Heights and one for Martin Scorsese for Bringing Back the Dead, his follow-up to Taxi Driver.
Uh-huh.
I got passed in both pieces. Those two directors were then trying to cast me, and then the head of the feature department at William Morris was, of course, wait a minute, who is this kid I've never heard of before, and how is it that he has Barry and Martin wanting him? I took the Barry job because I thought it was better, and
Mhm.
at that point, I now had the head of the agency representing me, and the rest was sort of history.
Got it. And any of the I've seen you in a bunch of things, obviously, The Replacements. We talked about Double Take when we met because that's
Sure.
like one of my favorite movies when it came out. Were any of these written by you too? Did you get the chance to write and
I did. It was interesting. At the time, I was already a full-fledged Writers Guild
Right.
member, right? And I was often being asked to rewrite things, and I was like, okay, I don't think I really thought about it.
Yeah.
So a lot of times in those roles, I would rewrite it. I would rewrite my role,
Yeah.
right? And so in all of those, I kind of ended up rewriting my role.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I didn't realize that that was a thing. At the time, I don't know if I knew enough to
Yeah.
know that. And as time went on, I was like, okay, wait a minute. Now I'm really writing this stuff and somebody else is taking credit for having written
Yeah.
it. This is, and that was sitting at a Writers Guild seminar, and they were like,
Yeah.
you should put a writing caveat in your contract so when you do write, you can be credited for it. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're actually going against the guild because someone else is taking credit for work that they, in fact, did not write. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh,
Yeah. That's fair.
got it.
Yeah.
Didn't think of it that way, right? Because I was excited to be there,
Totally.
and so I learned and gave away several, but who cares?
I think that's part of it. I mean,
I do too.
in every industry, in every vocation, you're going to do free work to get to where you want to be.
100%.
Yeah.
And you're going to have things stolen from you,
Yeah.
and take that as a
100%.
compliment because, frankly, that means that they were good enough that people decided to take them, right? But if you're looking to fight over that stupidity, you're wasting your time. Homeboy
Totally.
Shopping Network from In Living Color is literally a direct lift from one of my Food Line commercials.
Yeah.
Of me and my partner Michael trying to sell goods at the back of a trunk.
Yeah.
I mean, even in dialogue framing wise, I was like, hey,
Yeah.
and I tried to get a writing job on that job and I sent that tape over, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they didn't have a very similar idea, if not the same
Right.
idea, right?
Yeah.
So you're thinking, oh, they stole it from me. And I'm like, I don't know about that. Keenan's pretty funny. He probably had his own version.
We even see that with startups and NDAs where it's like, generally we don't sign them anymore because it's like, listen, if your idea is that easy to steal, that that anyone can execute on your idea, then
Not much of an idea.
exactly.
Yeah. And it's not about the idea. It is
No.
about the execution
100%.
of the idea.
Yep.
So
Big proponent of that. And listen, there's exceptions to that rule, but
100%. But by and large, I find that, Forrest Gump is only the execution is what makes
Right. Yeah.
Otherwise, you're like, what?
I would love to see the pitch on that, not the script, but just the pitch of like, this is what
Me
the movie
too.
is. What's that?
I got a chance to meet the writer, who I'm a huge fan of, Eric Roth.
Yeah.
And he's a very funny guy, but I mean, him and Zemeckis been changing all kinds of stuff around.
Oh yeah.
Super, super fun.
Yeah, that's great. And so you said you wanted the trifecta. You wanted to write, act, and
Sure.
produce. When did you get to produce?
Well, I started producing as a sitcom writer,
Okay.
but I didn't have the acting side of it done. I had
Yeah.
I surprisingly got the writing producing side done early in my career.
Yeah.
And then found myself in the acting side of it. And then over time, by the time I think I was 95, I was writing and producing, and that just kind of went on. And I, had to learn very quickly that you do the job you were contracted to do, not the job you weren't contracted to do.
Yeah.
So they didn't write you to change any lines in this one, buddy. So
Yeah.
hit your mark, mind your P's and Q's, and find out, why they wrote this and how they see this character. It's not so much about how you see this character. So
Yeah.
that became a really clear lesson because obviously writers like Aaron Sorkin and, do not wish for you to change a comma. They wish for you to stay focused on
Yeah.
exactly what they wrote as they wrote it.
Yeah.
So I quickly learned that, this is not a place where ad living is encouraged everywhere.
Yeah. And so I'm curious, as time progressed, like you hit some really quick success. And I mean, I'm sure it didn't feel that way. I mean, it took you, let's say, 9 years, as you said, to get to the writer, producer, actor side, but out of
Sure.
college. But at that point, like, how do you look at the future once you hit 95? You've had this success, you've done these things. Like, what is that next mountain you want to climb? What was that next accomplishment you're aiming for?
At that time, it was really I wanted to excel in front of the camera, right? I was really obsessed with Peter Sellers and being there and Stanley Kubrick. And look, once you achieve success and you're paying your bills,
Yeah.
you're trying to climb the ladder in Hollywood. And that generally means who are you working with? What projects are you connected to? And
Yeah.
what's the pedigree of those projects? So I obviously shifted after, hosting a show on FX. Because who was watching FX? Nobody knew it was a startup channel, right?
Yeah.
Who even knew if it was going to be here? And here's the hilarity of it: we were shooting in New York, but we weren't on in New York.
Oh, that's funny.
So we were on everywhere else in the country, but not in New York. So nobody knew who you were. So it was a journey in that sense. And I think I wanted, look, I wanted to do comedy, but I wanted to do drama. I wanted to do a myriad of things. And what I
Mhm.
quickly learned is coming from comedy, those doors are not automatically open to you.
Yeah.
So I started off obviously, I fortunately got cast in a Paul Thomas Anderson movie called Magnolia,
Uh-huh.
right after Liberty Heights. And suddenly I was in the very Oscar high end muckety muck
Yeah.
world, right? Largely invisible in that world, but I entered that with people like, Adrian Brody
Mhm.
and Ben Foster. We were all in Liberty Heights, right? Hanging out together,
Yeah.
you know, trying to get through it and learn our way and, make great friendships. Anthony Anderson and I and folks like that. And
Yeah.
just kind of kept moving down the road, but with a desire to, hey, I want to win the Golden Globe one day. I want to win
Yeah.
the Oscar one day. If I'm going to do this, I want to be mixed up in the top, not in the middle,
Yeah.
right? And that became a lot of the focus, and just how do you get access to those type of roles?
Yeah.
And so
And so, yeah, how
suddenly,
do you? Is it rubbing shoulders? Is it a good agent? Like, how do you get to make that transition?
there is it is completely the Wild West. There is no singular path to it. Um, a lot of it has to do with the agent. A lot of it has to do with the room. And frankly, a lot of it has to do with, at the end of the day, they're looking for a more known entity than you.
Yeah.
That's just, they're usually looking for a named entity. But by virtue of scheduling and sometimes chemistry
Yeah.
and often money, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to pay this person X number of dollars to do X. I spent my money here and here.
Yeah.
I'm going to find me a new kid to be the funny kid that rolls in. Or pay them this and it'll be fine, right?
Yeah.
And so I became that kid. I became, that's how I got the replacements, right? They put me in them. Like, this kid's funny. He'll create a character. It's not. We've already paid Keanu and Gene.
Yeah.
We need 10 other people. So I really learned that, and I was, again,
That
I
was
was
John.
lucky,
I
man.
just realized that was John Favreau's in that too, isn't it?
Yep, John Favreau, Risa Fons,
Yeah.
uh, you know what I mean?
What a
So,
great cast.
phenomenal cast, right? Gene Hackman. Gene and I became very close. God rest his soul. He took me under his wing and taught me a tremendous amount about acting as we went to dinner every night. And I kept him laughing on the field.
Yeah.
That was how I killed the time on that movie. But I mean, the jewels that dude gave me, man, I can't even
He's a
begin.
legend.
Yeah, again, dumb luck. Hackman liked me.
Yeah.
I'm talking trash. We had a good time. I'll tell you this quick story. When I first met him, it was his first day on set. We were shooting the scene where everybody discusses their fears. Mine was spiders.
Yeah.
And Hackman, they shoot him out. He's Hackman.
Yeah.
So they're shooting him and he does a take. And I think I'm being funny. So I walk over to him and I say, "Hey, man, are you going to do it like that? I mean, is that the way you're going to act?" And anyway, look, you do you, none of my business. And he did not laugh. Like, just don't they? And I was like, oh, fuck, I'm about to get fired. Yeah. And I literally thought, I was certain I was going to get fired.
Yeah.
So we finish. They turn the camera around. I do my first take. He comes over and he says, "Kid, I don't know what to tell you. I hear they got Jimmy Walker on a plane." I go, "What?" And he goes, "You're out of here, kid. You are out of here right now. Pack it up." And I was, "Are you serious to be fired?" And he started laughing. The face, look at your face.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Probably not the smartest thing to do, come over and crack your joke in the middle of me doing my close up, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you wait till afterwards, right? Come to dinner with me." So we went to dinner, and he was writing a book on sailing, maritime sailing, and he started talking to me about that. And after a while, I was like, "No, you're telling me acting stories through sailing. That's what you're doing here." And through that tenure, he was like, "Look, if it's not the close up kid, why are you acting? If it's the master, they're not even looking at you. It's for topography. It has nothing to do with you. Save it for when the camera's on you. Stop wasting it." And I was like, "Oh, okay, Mr. Hackman.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Hackman."
Yeah.
One of the But again, I think I was really fortunate, man. People kind of took a liking to me. They thought I had some talent, and they
Yep.
they really shepherded me through it. It was truly the blessing of my career.
Well, being likable and a good person, I think people really underestimate. I think we grew up with, bad things said like nice guys finish last, things like that. That I get what that is, don't get taken advantage of. But like being a good person and being likable, I mean, I,
100%.
I've had the feedback from a lot of people that have done a lot for me in my career that are like, yeah, we just did it because we liked you. And I'm like,
100%.
thank you. But yeah,
That's what same, right? Because I was too stupid to have an agenda,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So I didn't know who was who. I couldn't tell you what was happening enough to really be maneuvering politically, right?
yeah,
So I was just trying to be nice to everybody, and when asked to do something, I was trying to do my best work
yeah,
because I was fairly certain I didn't belong there. And that's how I thought of it, and that paid off for me because I think that's what people saw.
yeah. And so forgive me because I don't know. Have we got to the Golden Globes yet?
We have not gotten to
Is
the
it
Golden
still
Globe.
on the goal sheet? Are you still aiming
Not
for
so
it?
much.
Okay.
I mean, if that happens, great.
Sure.
But I mean, I've had so much work that's been critically acclaimed at this
Yeah.
point, and it's weird because there are tons of people, particularly younger people, who know nothing about my career as a comedian. They only know me for my
Right.
dramatic work because that's really all I've been doing the last, well, Abbott Elementary and that kind of stuff
Mhm.
aside, but largely it's been dramatic work.
Yeah.
So for me, the greatest compliment is to meet people who are like, "Hey, you're not at all like that humorless guy on Sleepy Hollow. You're nothing like that guy." So I enjoy that part of it. And it's been fun because now I try and guess when I meet people what they have seen and generally what box they have
Yeah.
me in, or if they, have had and I obviously I meet people who have followed my career over the course of now the last 25, 30 years, but
Mhm.
I largely meet people who either know me from comedy or know me from drama or know me from sci-fi,
Yeah.
but don't know the whole totality of it at all,
I
which
wonder
for
if
me
that's
is
a
awesome.
testament. Do people stick to their genre too? Like, do people bounce around different genres, or do they they watch comedy, so that's why they know you from comedy?
I think some of the stuff that's been so mainstream is kind of hard to miss.
Sure.
Um, and then and then commercial stuff really kind of changes that because 7 Up, everybody sees that, right? You're not locking a channel there. But I do feel like it's very different. I've never been right. I saw a blonde lady in Whole Foods in Beverly Hills, and I would have guessed her favorite was something else. Her obsession was double take.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? She's like, "You're not representing. You're not keeping it real." I'm like, "Did did not expect you to say that, particularly that way." So that's probably the great joy of it, right? Because fans gravitate to what they gravitate to.
Yeah.
But and I feel like I still feel like I'm in the beginning part of my career. When I was younger, and I had folks like Lawrence Fishburne, and there were, one I've gotten a chance to work with several times, but who sort of saw me on Mad TV because his son loved Mad TV,
Nice.
and he was like, "I saw you do me. You're very good at doing me. I've never seen anybody do me before."
Yeah.
But those guys kind of pushed me towards drama
Mhm.
and pushed me toward taking chances as an artist and consistently sort of challenging myself as an artist in those roles. Once again, mentorship largely from folks who had no reason to mentor me, but chose to.
Liked you. I think that's an important.
Straight up,
Yeah.
still one of my mentors. Still, like, he says he's not a mentor. We're colleagues, but I love him immensely, man. Because when he came up to me when I was on Mad TV, I was literally looking at him like a god had just walked up to speak to me.
Yeah.
By virtue of his work, and got a chance to be on stage with him doing fences and what have you, and
Yeah.
it's been a lot of fun. It really has.
And so I think probably hard question, but what's your favorite project you worked on, or something that it doesn't have to be your favorite? Let's take that pressure off, but like something one that stands out
Um,
that you really enjoyed.
I enjoy my stage work primarily because I think it's probably the purest if you're talking about acting. So,
Yeah.
doing August Wilson and doing The Wiz on Broadway and stuff like that. That was a lot of fun. I think super challenging. Also, you're doing 8 shows a week. There is no cut, retake. I mean, all of those components I enjoy.
Yeah.
Um, I really look at it based on what character did I get to bring to life, and some of those characters exist in a smaller capacity on something like The Good Lord Bird, where I'm playing the rail man. But that was a character I really wanted to bring to life because I was such a fan of the book.
Yeah.
Um, and he represents such a specific period in history that often isn't talked about, right? Because people talk about that period as if everybody was just slaves, right? And here's a guy operating the most sophisticated technology of its day, which was the
Yeah.
steam train, right? So for me, I'm like, I'm in this period,
Yeah.
but I'm playing a guy who's running the steam train and doing the Underground
Absolutely.
Railroad. I'm
Yeah.
not in the slave game. This is amazing, right?
Yeah.
So I felt the same about playing a god, right? Someone that is so revered throughout, the islands, and is such a part of how people came to this country through the slave trade. And Mr. Nancy Neil Gaiman, obviously, I was a huge fan of as a writer and what have you. So I really focused on what was the role and what did I get to bring to life with the role and who did I get to collaborate with? Because often I'm not telling my story.
Yeah.
I'm a part of someone else's story. And I really, really enjoy pouring myself into a character, but I'm not the author of it in many ways, right?
Yeah.
I really want the writer and producers to be like, here's our dream scenario.
Yeah.
And then I want to create the character. I don't particularly enjoy coming in going, I came up with this guy and he's going to do this, right?
Yeah.
Because often you don't know who you're going to be opposite. You don't have the feeling, you don't have the smell of it yet, right?
Yeah.
So I don't have a favorite because I prefer to be challenged by the people I'm working with, and I like being asked to do hard things.
Okay.
Honestly,
Yeah. No, that's
um,
a great answer.
yeah,
Um, so last two questions for you. Number one, what's next for you?
a couple things. I am and have always been heavy in the biohacking world.
Hmm.
I've been vegan since I was 17 years old.
Hmm.
That's been a journey. Um, I recently just became chief marketing officer over at a company called Space Milk that you and I briefly talked about. Things are going well there. I'm enjoying bringing that story to life, really.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by the story, primarily because the idea of, particularly when I'm shooting or when I realize I'm 190 for this role, I need to be 170.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for something like a space milk that's a complete protein that's healthy that I can drop weight, do my workouts. I never had anything like that per se.
Yeah, it's tough.
So it's always been about doing it the vegan way, which when you're putting on weight is far more difficult. So
Yeah,
it's about eating 6 times a day and lifting a lot because muscle weighs more than fat, as
right.
you know.
Yeah,
So it's like a hack and a hack for me to be able to tell that story, right?
yeah,
Um, and I am very focused on sharing that story because I realize it's become a huge part of my own narrative,
yep,
primarily because I don't look my age. So I'm constantly meeting people who are like, "What are you doing?" And I recently went to the neurologist, did my thing with my doctor, and he kind of pushed me down the road even further. He was like, I'd actually like to know day to day what you're doing because
wow,
you've got some numbers here that I've never seen before.
wow,
So I don't know how you achieve them, but I would like you should probably share that if you're passionate about storytelling at all.
yeah,
And it kind of hit me different, really. I was like, oh wow, I hadn't thought of that, and to hear that from a physician, I thought I'm going to do that. So that is obviously a passion. I just wrote a film that I'm going to direct. Uh, in the fundraising world, that seems to be going well, and we have some folks who want to stroke that check. And obviously, still doing Abbott and looking for stuff that pushes the needle. And it's a very crowded landscape, in my opinion. Lots of stuff being made, but I feel like it's got to be something that cuts through, and
yeah,
that's kind of where my focus is. And finally, I think I'm going to come back to socials. I've really been out of social media for
mhm,
frankly a little while. I was heavy in it all through 2014 to 2019, but I really got frustrated by the not only the changing nature of the algorithm, but the changing nature of the listing tools and then the
yep,
machine learning tools, and how much it's become tools making content,
yeah. I agree with that.
right? And the future of tools making content now feels like if it's not special, if it's not truly genuine, if it's not this in many ways, right?
Yep,
Two humans, genuinely authentic, legitimately storytelling. I don't need to watch the work of two bots.
I totally agree with you. I don't think it's gonna. I don't think the efficacy is gonna be there, and it's interesting. Meta's talking about replacing all agencies with bots, and it's like
Yeah.
I don't see. I don't think you have a good vision of what the future looks like.
I completely agree. I don't think that's the future. And I believe, and frankly, if everything is on your phone,
Yeah,
or on your tablet or on your computer or your gaming device, then what's really special is something happening down the street.
yep, exactly. Yep.
Live music,
We
stand up, all
so
of those
funny. Yeah,
types of
that's
experiential
that's
is
why
where
we
I'm
do
seeing
our
folks.
events. We do monthly events at the office. We do our big summit we talked about, just because it's like we need to get in person. Like, that's what people crave now. It's not just sitting there with.
100%. Well,
Um,
and I plan on trying to be at your event
yeah,
actually. So
that's
yes,
obvious.
for sure on that. And I agree with you. I work with a group called Pop Up Agency. And Pop Up Agency, I've known the founders of that agency for 25 years. We've worked together in so many different capacities. I love working with them. I love the way they're doing retail. I love the way they're doing experiences because it pops up out of nowhere.
Yep.
It, suddenly, I was riding down the street, corner of Melrose and La Cienega. There's a Jaded London store and a line around the block.
Yeah, I know.
Stores doing 60, 70, 80 grand a day,
Yep,
right? Okay. The shops just down near Earth's Cafe are not doing that amount of business every day
100%. Yeah.
in a long-term lease. So when I look at those things and I look at the future of entertainment, I go, it's not going to be building Disneyland or Universal
No,
anymore. That's not the experience, but there are experiences to be had, and I think that's what excites me about
agreed.
storytelling now. I think it's changed. It's not completely gone. Technology still plays a role, but
Yeah,
it's no longer the building of these big things anymore.
yeah, I agree with that. And so, last question for you that's kind of in line. If there's someone out there trying to achieve their dreams, that what would be the one thing you either did hear or wish you heard that you would tell someone that's trying to reach the top level in their own career?
Um, I would not concern myself with right and wrong, and I would not concern myself particularly even out the gate with revenue. As soon as you start a certain business conversation or you jump into the venture conversation, everyone is talking to you about revenue.
Hmm.
And everyone is talking to you about a very particular business model of selling more things tomorrow than they sold today.
Hmm.
I genuinely believe that customer lifetime value is the future,
Hmm.
and how you service that customer is extremely important. So how you understand that customer
Yep.
is extremely important. If someone had told me that don't focus your attention on on those metrics, apply more of a CLV look at this. Try and understand the customer in the market so that you can keep that customer over an extended period of time.
Yep.
I feel like where disruption is something that we do not think about, and we're watching businesses get disrupted over and over and over again.
Yep.
And then the chaos that we're in right now, smart people want to set up a toll booth,
Yep.
right? To extract maximum wealth out of your pain.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And hats off to Bezos for being smart and seeing that and setting up that Amazon is one of those toll booths. But I think as we iterate and innovate as entrepreneurs, focus on the lifetime value. I believe that that'll lead you there. And I've learned that I think through cons of all things,
100%.
because in my line of work, my interaction and transactability with the customer is through the studio, the network, that other sales component.
Yeah.
I went to 15 different cons one year, dude, and there were about, I'd say, 60 or 70 people who came to the con and bought a different picture from me
Yeah.
and were following me from con to con. But when I look at their travel, their hotel, the cost of that VIP ticket,
Yep.
the food, and the cost of buying stuff from me, I realized that each one of those people had spent in excess of about $60,000-$70,000
Yep.
traveling to all of those cons to visit.
Yep.
There's no point in my world where I had that level of transactability with a customer that had that level of disposable income.
Yep.
10 grand from 60 people
Yeah.
is a real transaction over the course of a weekend,
Yeah. It's yeah, I mean, totally with you. I think that
right?
yeah, and but it also forces the right habits. Is it goes back to even why the people helped you out. You do the right thing, you
Exactly.
take care of people, and not only do you maintain in terms of like those people continue to spend with you, work with you, but it opens
That's
up
right.
so many other doors. It's just you learn this after doing this for decades that what goes around does come around, and you do have people that
100%.
pop up that go, "I loved working with you 15 years ago. I have this big thing that you're like, holy shit, okay, let's do it."
People are at so many different points in their lives when they're consuming content.
Yeah,
You're not in that moment, but they are.
yeah,
And they come up and they're like, man, I was going through this and this. And I saw you
yeah,
here and this pulled me through. You mind
yeah,
that's a completely different experience. I've learned that the value of that experience is completely overlooked. It's diminished,
yeah.
but the power of it is tremendous. And to put a button on this, I was working with Sci-Fi, and they pulled me into their marketing when they were in their rebrand years ago. And I got a chance to really work with them. And they're like, what do you want to do? And they had this hashtag called It's a Fan Thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, all you say is watch and buy. That's all you ever say. But that's not your experience, your relationship with your fans. And they were, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to marry fans at Comic Con.
Yeah.
And then they're what? And I said, look, you meet people on a line,
Yeah.
you become friends with them, you fall in love. I want to marry fans because this entire experience is about geek love. So I did 35 weddings and 15 vow renewals over the course of a 4-day weekend.
That's amazing.
And what I love about that is each year when the anniversary comes up, they share.
Yeah.
Every year, hey, I got married by Orlando Jones'
Yeah. It's
father fangirl when he was cosplaying. Never ending joy,
yeah.
never ending happy. I, one of the best experiences ever, but that's a fan thing because
Yeah.
it's not about commerce
Yeah.
and it never goes away.
Yeah.
And for me, the commerce comes when you do that, as we have learned with Facebook and Instagram
Right.
and WhatsApp and all these other platforms that
Yeah.
were not businesses in the beginning and now are juggernauts.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. And this has been awesome, Orlando. Thank you so much for coming on Hawke Talk.
Oh man, you're kidding me! Thank you, Eric. Man, a pleasure talking to you. I knew from the moment we met, I was
Yeah.
like
It
a
was fun.
brother here. So this is awesome. Thank you for having me.